Base is dropped on a new week of the morning show here at the SDH Network. John, hear you there. And I've got kind of an elongated opening kickoff. But my first question, well, how was your weekend? Was a weekend where some MLS teams played, some didn't. We had some news. We had a national team play on several levels on and off the field. Results obviously not what a lot of folks were looking for, especially against a rival. Bart Keeler from the Soccer for US PLD. You'll be joining us in about 10 minutes to break all that stuff down. And the reason that Bart is early this morning, other than the U.S. men's national team playing this past weekend, Pochettino possibly, probably, maybe, perhaps, being announced, named, appointed, dots crossed, T's dotted, that kind of a thing, is that, like I said, a couple different levels where we had national team play. Then, with all of the stuff on the field, we had Alex Morgan playing her last match this past weekend. It literally was like snap notice, as you noticed on the show, when those of you who are as intrepid listeners, watchers, viewers, reporters, producers as you are, finding Alex Morgan's retirement announcement. 26,000 showed up at Snapdragon, by the way. Very, very cool. On short notice to see Alex Morgan's last match. And she did, and I don't know if this is a soccer thing or just a leaving the sport kind of a deal where you take your boots off. In wrestling, and I mean this in both the entertainment aspect and in the sport aspect, when you play your last match or when you have your last match on the mat, you take your shoes off and you just leave them there in the center of the ring. You walk away. Alex Morgan did the same thing, except she took her cleats with her. That might have been kind of messy at Snapdragon if folks are trying to play. And, it's the 13th minute and folks are trying to play around her cleats and things like that. But she took her cleats with her. So it's Alex Morgan. It is USMNT with Mikey Veras. And it is also reffing down here. And reffing down here is going to be opening kickoff. Because this past weekend we had a couple of angry coaches for a couple of different reasons. And I'll tell you now that we've got the full rants of two coaches about particular things that happened in the game this past weekend, and we're going to play them for you. And like I said, they're complete rants. Traditionally, you know me, I want things to be done in their full context. And the two rants that we have, they're long. Don't get me wrong. They are long rants, but they're worth your time to hear the whole thing. Hour number one, we'll hear from Caleb Porter. Hour number two, we're hoping, knock on wood, to start hour number two off, and this is the other reason that Bart's at 9:15. That if technology can work for us, we will be able to catch up with some folks about European soccer history. If it works, it'll be cool. So hoping that can happen at 10 o'clock for a couple of minutes. Then in hour number two, we've got the other coaching rant from the weekend. And we've got an update on Chelsea and the ownership group there seemingly infighting and trying to figure out, well, I'm not leaving, you're leaving. No, I'm not leaving. You're leaving, I'm not leaving. And we might know the why. The other coach's rant comes from the MLS activity on the weekend. And it's something that we've talked about, and it really came to the fore this past weekend with one of the matches that occurred. So we'll have that information as well. So it is Bart with reffing down here, the USMNT, Alex Morgan, and anything else on his mind. 10 o'clock, if technology works, Then we get to catch up on some European history. I'm not going to reveal it because I tried to put it in the 280 character app announcement. That's the other thing this morning. But it wouldn't fit in everything else. And then hour number 2, once again, if technology works, it'll be a cool moment out of Europe, plus Chelsea, plus more rules and coach rants. And we'll talk about the twos and the big weekend that they had as well. So that's the show for the morning. Once again, thanks for dropping by, as you always do. So here's how we'll go. Opening kickoff, multi-part, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. That's your QR code. For those of you who are hanging out with us this morning, however you're hanging out with us, that's your QR code. For those of you who are watching in a video sense, either on the YouTubes, on the Twitch, or on the 280 character app, you hit that. Then you go into Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15 when you check out. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest it in youth games, youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. All right. Now, the first part of opening kickoff has to do with the 280 character app. And I don't know if you guys are having the same problems that I am. So when I try and post that, hey, you know what? We're going to have a show coming up at 9:05 Eastern. And I do it on my phone. And like I said, it could be just the fortress that we have here at Office HD, and the dome of silence doesn't allow anything to be written in the 280 character app. But I tried this morning to post the update of, we're going to be up at 9:05 Eastern here on the network, and this is what we're going to talk about. And every once in a while I'll try it and the message will fail, and then I have to come down here, warm up the computer, and get the computer to say it as opposed to the mobile device. Every single time recently that I have attempted to post an update to the mobile device, the 280 character app kind of looks at me and goes, bruh, not going to happen. It's really not going to work. And I didn't know if you guys had the same problems. So like I said, I was just checking to see if there was an issue that you guys had as well, trying to post things to the 280 character app. And I mean that just like in any general sense, not just like now or like in the 8 o'clock hour Eastern time. I mean, like, period. When you post things, are you having problems? Every single time I try mobile device versus computer here in the office of HDness, I always seem to have a problem, and I didn't know if it was just me, which it probably is, my phone, which it may be, or the 280 character app, but someone with a higher pay grade probably has a better thought on that than I do. Okay, just checking. So let me know on the Twitch pitch. All right, the other element of opening kickoff leads us into Bart at 9:15, and probably close. So Bart's going to be listening to this too. We're going to get into reffing down here this morning. And there were instances or incidents in the New England all caps match from the weekend that drew the ire of an individual. And there were two specific instances, one that had to do with a handball call, and two, the new substitution rule. So after the match is over, and so Bart gets to listen to this rant as a part of his open, so he can have his coffee and react in facial expressions. We're all going to listen to this together. 2-2 draw was how it ended up with the Revs and all caps on the weekend. And this is courtesy of our friends at Blazing Musket. Blazing Musket found the audio from the beginning of the Caleb Porter post-match press conference where he was upset about two things and decided to let the center ref have it with not just both barrels, but any barrel that he could find. And I mean, like, he probably went to like Niagara Falls or a rodeo, grabbed some barrels, brought them with him, and posted them there in the press conference. That's how mad Caleb Porter was. So here is Caleb Porter, and I will bring in Bart, considering it is 9:15 and I want to be punctual. So I just want to say, hi, Bart, what's in the mug?
Earl Grey tea with honey because, John, we're getting over a battle with COVID apparently.
Oh no, no, that's not good. That's illegal. You can't have that.
I would agree. It felt
Uh,
very illegal.
yes. So Bart is now here. So Bart will be able to listen to the rant like the rest of us, and we're going to listen together to Caleb Porter because he was mad after the 2-2 draw and talked about two instances. When we come back from the Caleb Porter rant, then we'll talk about the two instances and what you thought about the two instances themselves. Like I said, one has to do with a handball that wasn't called. The other has to do with our new substitution rule in Major League Soccer. So after the match, Caleb Porter was slightly angry about a lot of things. And so here's Caleb Porter feeling he was screwed and let everybody know about it, especially center ref Timothy Ford.
Told the team that we're going to win a lot of games if we play that way. We're very disappointed with the officiating. It's 100% a penalty kick, 100%. I don't know how you look honestly at the screen and decide not to give a penalty. It is a complete joke. It's a travesty. And there needs to be some accountability for that decision because we lost 2 points because of that decision. And we have literally had that same thing happen to us 3 different times where the official's been sent to the monitor and there's a clear penalty and the official doesn't call it. What is happening? It is mind-boggling that he doesn't call that a penalty. We are the only team in the league that hasn't had 1 penalty. What is happening? I've never seen anything like it. For me, all I can say is a complete coward. The referee was a complete coward in that moment. Complete coward. And it's a travesty. He shouldn't officiate. He cost our players 2 points today. 2 really important points. And I'm not going to stand for it. I'm not going to stand for it. I don't care if I get fined. I don't care what Don Garber says. What Don Garber needs to do is look at that situation, look at the official in that situation, and needs to hold this official accountable. And then the second part of the joke show, clown show, was giving us a penalty for not getting out of the game. Luka was coming out of the game because he was injured. But we want guys to literally... He couldn't sprint any faster to get out of the game. He couldn't get out of the game any faster. Initially he walked, yes. But then he sprinted out of the game as fast as he could. The referee told me that it was 14 seconds. 14 seconds it took him to get out of the game. So because he's 4 seconds late, because he can't sprint any faster, they penalize us, and we end up giving away a goal during that penalty. The game isn't meant to be played this way. It's an absolute joke. You're supposed to, as an official, use your discretion in those moments. He did not use his discretion in either of those moments. He missed a clear penalty. If he looks at the monitor and decides that's not a penalty, he should not be an official in this league. He's not competent enough to be an official in this league. If he chooses, in his discretion, to penalize Luca Langoni when he's sprinting for 40 yards to get off the field, he's trying to get off the field. It was 14 seconds. The referees are supposed to use their discretion. He was walking initially because he was injured. This is a joke. And so it's impossible to talk about the game without talking about those two moments from the official.
Joe, did you get an explanation on the possible handball? Did he say what it was or wasn't?
He said that his arm was in a natural position. So I don't know about you guys, but I don't see guys running like this or jumping like this. He handled the ball right here. Everybody in the whole stadium saw the replay. Everybody. If that's not a penalty, if that's not a handball, I don't know what is. But the fact that he actually looked at it and decided that wasn't, got no balls. You can't be in this job if you're a coward, if you're not competent. I like Tim as a person. I think he's a good guy. But at the end of the day, this is our livelihood. This is these players' livelihood. We have to have a standard. And even though he's a good guy, he clearly showed today he should not be officiating in the league with those decisions. That's a win. That's a win for us that he took away.
So, hi, Bart.
Good morning.
I thought it would be important to run the entire thing. And I know folks are sitting there going, man, that was long. But yeah, it was. And it was two issues that I wanted to bring up on purpose because I don't like to do sound bites in that situation. I don't like to do that. And so the two elements that Caleb Porter brought up was a handball in the where it looked like it was basically a jump ball. And in this case, and what I'll do is I will post the link to the Blazing Musket articles where they have the screen caps and things like that so folks can see if they didn't see the match itself. Looked like it was a jump ball, and you have a bit of jostling, and as the body goes up, then you have that contact, and it kind of clatters around shoulder to shoulder, then goes away. Then the other element is the 10-second new rule about get your butt up and get off the field, or you're going to play down a man. St. Louis ends up being down a man after it was judged that Luca Langoni did not leave in a timely fashion. You're playing shorthanded. It's basically a power play for St. Louis. St. Louis scores to tie it at 2 with about 20 to go. Caleb Porter's hot. Which one do you want to start with first?
Well, let's start with the substitution because I think this is a little more cut and dry.
Sure.
Look, I think coaches need to realize that referees this year specifically are not going to be playing around because these are the rules they've been given, right? You have 10 seconds to get off the field. You can exit the field at the closest point. You do not have to go from one corner flag to the center line. You can go off the field wherever you feel is the closest point for you. And if you are truly injured, then you need to stay down and get that medical help and then go off the field for that. So I don't really have a whole lot of sympathy in that situation, to be quite honest, because, if the player was truly injured, then he should have come off with medical help, right? Training staff should have been out there, or he could have gone off the closest, exit at the closest point of the field and wouldn't have had this issue. I'm sorry, I just don't have a whole lot of sympathy for that. And I'll be honest, John, going into the next one, I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for Caleb Porter, period.
True.
You got hired and paid a decent amount of money to make a team good, and y'all are worse than Atlanta United, which takes a lot of, that's a lot to accomplish in this year.
There you go. All right, so that was point number one, the exit, which created a game-tying goal, and it stayed 2-2. The other incident has to do with adjudicating handballs once again. And in this particular instance, once again, it looked like it was a jousting moment where you have two players going up, one on each side, and you have contact made. And Caleb Porter was of the opinion that in the contact and as the ball is coming down, that it should have been a handball call on St. Louis, and it was not, and therefore Caleb Porter once again was upset. Once again, go over, if you would please, the idea of handball and the allowances that are given center refs when it comes to adjudicating a handball in today's game.
Well, the first thing we're looking at here specifically is, does the ball touch a non-playable part of the body? And it does, right? I think it's very clear that it touches somewhere above the elbow, at least.
It was basically right in here, basically, shoulder rotator cup-ish, headed down toward the bicep.
And it definitely touched what I would consider an illegal part of the body, right? Like you're not supposed to be able to touch the ball with that part of your body. But Was it deliberate? I don't think it was deliberate. So there's the first thing that we're checking off the list. The ball does not, the hand does not move toward the ball or anything. The hand is, however, outside of the natural silhouette of the body, right? He has made his body bigger by putting his hand up. So I think there is some legitimate question as to why this was not deemed a handball in the penalty area. But we're also looking at, was it a consequence of the wording as justifiable by the player's body movement for that specific situation? And that's where I think we get into the gray area here, John, is the player is jumping at, to seemingly head the ball. We all know that in those situations, your arms are going to come up. You're going to, in some way, shape, or form, be using your arms to get more both height and protection.
Right.
And I think the other thing that's not really talked about in the laws of the game, but that we do talk about a little bit in referee training, is the idea of deflection, or the amount of time you have to react to that. And it wasn't like it was, I don't know, kicked directly into his arm, right?
It wasn't like Kyle Hebert was thinking about it, then
right.
Up. But yeah, it's like it was a natural reaction to try to contest for a ball that was elevated. So Hebert is trying to jump up toward the ball to make contact, and he is second to make contact with it.
So I think there's a legitimate gripe, but I think for him to make this to be some sort of like, the referee should never referee again, I think is a very foolish thing. I mean, I would argue that Caleb Porter doesn't need to be coaching in this league again, because the man hasn't been able to get a team into the playoffs in God knows how many years. So, this is one of those things where I understand the frustration, but this type of reaction is completely, it's just unacceptable from Caleb. I mean, this is not as clear cut as he thinks it is, especially given the fact that it's more of a deflection from, it's not like this was a long kick that was hit into his arm. It was definitely something that was a boom boom play. That said, had this been given a penalty kick, I don't think that Hebert could have been super upset with being penalized for that, because again, to quote the laws of the game, by having their hand/arm in such a position, the player takes a risk of their hand or arm being hit by the ball and being penalized. So yeah, it's a risk. And in this situation, I don't feel like it was worth penalizing, but had he been penalized, I don't think there would have been too much that he could have said that would have saved him. I don't think that it's, I think both instances, I especially the substitution thing, sorry, that's just the rules.
Mm-hmm. Them's the rules is what you're saying.
Them's the rules. And if you are injured, then you need to make that clearer to the referee, or something, be like, hey, I can't, leave. But again, you can leave at any point in the field that's whatever closest to you, and then go get medical attention once you're off the field.
And the rant toward Timothy Ford, while a lot of managers in Major League Soccer and front office folks, I'm sure, have rants about Timothy Ford.
Totally.
Atlanta being one, the Revs being one, because Timothy Ford called 3 first-half penalties against the Revs in a game back in 2022 against NYCFC. Carlos Heel did remember that when he was asked about it, post-match, about just the game in general. But how large, and like, we don't really have a base of operations here when it comes to figuring out length of fines and such. But how big a fine do you think, how big an envelope is Caleb Porter going to be getting from the league office in New York? How big a fine do you think he gets? And does he get suspended here? Do you have to make an example of Caleb Porter for the words that he said?
Well, I don't think it's a suspension, but I do think there's a sizable fine. I don't have off the top of my head what a benchmark would be for another coach getting fined for referee comments, but I mean, he'll get fined. It'll probably be a little heftier because of the length and the language used. It wasn't profane, but it was very strong.
Yes.
But again, the other thing is I would agree that Tim Ford has been part of some very contentious moments in MLS this year, even and in years past. So he probably is a referee who needs a little bit more coaching and a little bit maybe pay attention more in the pre-season modules, talking about how do we be a little bit more consistent across referees across all matches. But I again, I don't think these two instances are something that is an egregious flaw by his refereeing.
All right, so let's put the reffing down here aside as you sample your Earl Grey. The U.S. national teams, plural, they are active right now. You have some YNT action going on. You have some MNT action going on. Let's start with the good stuff. Alex Morgan yesterday retires. She does so. It was short notice. I mean, I think it was Alex got to post it on. He's like, "Hey guys, look over here." By the way, And so the retirement notice comes out on social media. It turns out more on short notice, 26,000 plus end up at Snapdragon to see her final match. She gets subbed out in the 13th minute. She gets a PK saved. Hey, read the room. Come on, it's her last match. So Alex Morgan leaves in the 13th minute. Very, very cool moment where she takes off her boots and she walks off. When you think of Alex Morgan and her place in American soccer, whether it's national league, what have you, when I mention Alex Morgan, what comes to mind?
Well, I think Alex Morgan as a player has been someone who has just been kind of she has set the standard for what U.S. women's national team players have to be and how they conduct themselves for 12 years now. And I think that kind of ability to say this is where you need to be as a national team player has been integral to the team winning back-to-back World Cups, to during her time, maybe she wasn't part of it, but during her time winning 2 gold medals, winning another medal as well. She has been part of the greatest period of success in U.S. women's national team history. She's also been part of some failures. She was part of that 2011 team that failed to win. The only time they've ever lost a World Cup final, losing in penalty kicks to Japan. She was a part of that 2016 Olympic team that crashed out in the first knockout round. But her leadership and her standard of play is the reason why they were able to rebound. You remember in 2011, okay, well, they lose the final to Japan. What do they do in 2012? They win a gold medal. You get knocked out early in the 2016 Olympics. What do? Well, 2019, they go win a World Cup. And that was when she was, a mainstay fixture of that team. But just her standard of play has been integral on the field. But then, John, off the field is where I think she has been the most effective. You think about the equal pay fight. You think about some of the sexual and personal harassment issues that NWSL has dealt with. She has been a champion of those women who have come forward with their stories to make sure that other women can be safe in the league. Stories of her going over to Tottenham and basically demanding that they have better playing conditions in Lyon and in Tottenham. Again, she expects a standard of play from herself and everyone around her, and then she expects the people off the field to give them a certain standard of support. And I think that is something that will continue to live on long after 8:20, whenever it ended up being 13th minute of the game last night when she was taken off.
Yep. The U20s Women's World Cup made it to the knockout stage in Colombia with a 7-0 win over Paraguay in the Group C finale. They finished second in the group. Pietra Tordin had a hat trick, and the second place behind defending champ Spain. They get Mexico on Wednesday. Will be a match of the 2023 U20 Championship, which Mexico beat the U.S. 2-1 in the final. Only 5 starters from the 23 team are in Colombia, by the way.
Yeah, that Mexico game was a wild one. U.S. completely dominated, and Mexico got 2 lucky goals and somehow won that game in Mexico, mind you. So, they seem to always play these CONCACAF championships in Mexico. It's quite funny. Yeah, it's a good opportunity. I mean, again, I think on the men's side, I usually am a little indifferent about these tournaments. I'm just glad we're there and hope we make it out of the knockouts. But on the women's side, especially this team, there's a lot of professional talent on this team, particularly. And despite the fact that Tracy Kevins is still coaching this team for God knows what reasons, I don't know why she hasn't been catapulted into the sun. She's a terrible coach. She continues to just squander talent anytime that she's ever been a part of a coaching staff for this youth program. And I don't know why she's still here. I hope Emma Hayes, that's the first thing that she actually does post Olympics, is get rid of her. But this team has, I'm sorry, that was a rant that a lot of U.S. women's soccer fans have felt.
It's all good, brother.
Like, y'all complain about Berhalter. Oof. But this team has a lot of professional talent on it. Like, literally, there's a lot of players who play professionally on this team, and you need to start raising the expectation for these age groups, because just being there isn't good enough, and we need to start taking advantage of these opportunities to build not just team cohesion, but expand the player pool and really build out what needs to be the most robust player pool in the world. I think specifically to Mexico, you better go win. You're a better team than they are. You have been for a long time. And after that, you just try to win the next game. But yeah, these youth tournaments for the women need to start being a little bit more emphasized and winning, because we need to kind of reclaim that top spot. And Spain has dominated the youth ranks for a decade now. There's a reason they're one of the best national teams in the world, but we've got to start performing better in these tournaments to get back to that spot as well.
Men's side, it looks like, and I use the words looks like we're getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to some kind of official announcement with trumpeted fanfare from parapets upon high in Roman castles from the 17th century or something, with the flags draping down as they would always do. Looks like we're getting close to Mauricio Pochettino, because we had an announcement over the weekend. It looks like the staff, the main staff that he traditionally has and has had at all of his stops as far back as folks can remember, will be the staff that he brings in for the national team. So it's like it's going to be Mauricio and his crew coming in here for this when this becomes finally final.
Yeah, I think people forget that that's like a big part of these coaching negotiations as well, as who they can bring in. And if Poch costs a lot of money, his staff is going to cost a lot of money as well. And so again, it's about how do we find that money in the coffers versus
and your professorships. Yes.
Yeah. How do we sponsor? How do we get those endowments to keep those players, or excuse me, those coaches with him?
Yes.
We did this with Emma. She got a lot of the staff that she normally has had with her throughout her time at Chelsea to come over. Again, there are a lot of things to these coaching negotiations, and one thing people do have to remember about U.S. soccer is it is not one person or one board necessarily making a decision. They're not just full time all the way there, and they're certainly not in one location. So these things don't just come together. The word is that they're meeting today to approve that, because they have to. Virtually, I'm sure that makes a lot of things a little bit easier, but they're not. Those people aren't necessarily employees, if you will, of U.S. Soccer. They're not on the clock 9 to 5 for U.S. Soccer today. So it is coming together. Hopefully, we have an announcement before tomorrow, because by golly, we need a coach in here, John. Someone who is going to hold these players accountable, because they're sure as hell ain't seem to be able to do it themselves.
Yeah, and like I said, this is why I was building to this for the remainder of the segment, or however much longer you want to talk about it, up to the top of the hour, because I think
Can we talk about Alex Morgan again? I mean, goodness gracious.
Well, I think we're going to be able to have our guest coming up at the top of the next hour. So if technology works, it's going to be very, very cool. I'm just going to go ahead and ask it this way. What in the blue hell happened in this matchup against Canada, where apparently, now if the numbers are correct, it's the first home defeat to Canada in 67 years. Years, man. What happened here?
Well, I think we need to look at this on a couple of things. One, Canada cared a lot about this game, as they're going to care about every game because that's how Jesse Marsh coaches, right? He's going to be everything's geared up for everything, and that's great. That can take you far, but it can also fizzle out really quickly. So good for him. They're still in the honeymoon stage of his coaching. They did finally figure out how to score goals, which was a struggle for their first 5 matches.
Forever.
On the flip side, the U.S. played terribly. No player seemed to want to grasp. No starter seemed to want to grasp the moment of an opportunity to prove themselves without a head coach. That there were guys on this field who had opportunities to really make their case to the incoming coach, whoever that might be, even if it's not Poach. It could have been Mikey. I mean,
hey, there you go. There's your rant. There it is. Explicit rating 36 minutes in. Attaboy.
No one seemed poised to want to make a name for themselves or show out in a good way. And there were definitely some players on this field who had chances to do that. I think Malik Tillman looked the best out of those kind of not on the bubble players, but those players who needed to prove that they belong. I will be honest, I'm very disappointed Caleb Wiley wasn't in this game because Christopher Lund provided very little of any sort of positivity on the field.
Right.
And Johnny Cardoso was a major disappointment. You just have to call it like it is. I mean, we've been wanting to see him for the U.S. national team. He's performed well in Brazil, performed very well, relatively going over to Spain. And the reason we're stumped. Why can't he play better with the U.S. men's national team? Is it just because he's in a single pivot versus a double pivot? That shouldn't be the reason. You still had Yunus Musa dropping very deep. I mean, they were basically playing a double pivot. There was a lack of desire from this men's national team that has been here, and I'm sorry to go back to him, but it's been here since the second era of Greg Berhalter taking over.
Right.
And for some reason, some sort of malaise and complacency has crept into the system, crept into this program, and the guys do not feel like they need to actually improve upon what they did in 2022. And that's really, really frustrating. And at this point, you do have to question the players and their leadership because, I'll call him out, Christian Pulisic. He's just not that type of leader. Right? That's not who he is. He's I'm going to do it by how I play. And he didn't play poorly by any stretch. But, you were missing Tyler Adams. You were missing Weston McKennie. You were missing Jedi Robinson, guys who have been kind of those types of more vocal, vibes-based leaders. And, Tim Ream has said it. There are guys who aren't taking it seriously enough for, playing for the national team. At the same time, Tim Ream had a terrible game. So, how much of that do you take into consideration? Again, we're trotting out Tim Ream despite the fact that all signs are saying we need to start moving on. So some of this is on Mikey. There's a reason he hasn't succeeded anywhere he's been, to be quite honest, as a head coach. Outside of a good, CONCACAF U20 run, hasn't really had a lot of success as a head coach. So, there's that. It was frustrating. They couldn't pass to each other. Part of that is because, again, the system that they continue to play, and Mikey's system is very different, not very different from Berhalter's, if there is any difference. Continues to be slow, continues to not demand players move into open space even to receive a pass. I mean, that first goal was because Patrick Schulte felt like 10 minutes trying to find anyone who is moving into an open space. So he has to go short to Tim Ream, which invites the whole Canada team to do the one thing they want to do, which is press. And Johnny makes a really bad decision on a pass. He had plenty of time. He didn't have to do that. But when you're under pressure like that, you're going to make bad decisions. That's the Red Bull way. And you give up a goal.
Right.
And then conversely, they defended with heart, they defended with determination, and that kept you off the board for the most of the game, as well as just flat out fizzling out attacks when you didn't need to, because again, we don't have enough support in the box, which is a common theme under Greg Berhalter and is continuing under Mikey Virus because he's not a real head coach.
Mm-hmm. The way that it laid out, Jesse Marsh after the match, it was very, very intriguing. And so, hang on just a second. Let me get to the quote. I'd rather coach our team right now, 100%, no questions asked. Marsh said after the win, you can see the mentality's been developed. You can see the way this team plays. You can see how much they love playing for the national team, willing to put their careers and lives and the way they play on the line to be the best they can be for each other and for the team. That's all you can ask for as a coach. Bart, guess what? I'm going to put a bookmark in this because our guest is early. Our guest is early. Get this. All right. So after what happened last week, and I'm going to do a little bit of setup here. We have on the network, we have somewhat adopted our friends from San Marino. All right. So, and we all know what happened and what happened last week. So here's the proof that we've adopted our friends from San Marino. So after the win, I reached out and I'm like, hey, can we talk about what happened here? And guess what? We're going to do it. All right, so let's check technology. And Luca, how are you? How are you, my friend?
I'm really fine. Thank you. And you?
I'm doing great, man. Hey, look, as I was telling our friends here on the show, I said,
yeah, it's a really nice scarf, isn't it?
Yep, and it is only a part of it. And so last week after the win, we went ahead and said we are all San Marino here on the network. We are all San Marino. We could not have been happier for you with what happened. And I reached out and I wanted to say, and I wanted to see if we could get some kind of a response. And you reached out and you were like, yeah, man, we can talk it through. And I know that you're in Moldova, right?
Correct. We checked in our hotel 1 hour ago because we had a delayed flight schedule this morning with our charter flight to reach Moldova and play tomorrow our official friendly. But yeah, here we are. I just entered the room 10 minutes ago.
It's all good, brother. I won't keep you too long. I'll probably keep you until 5 o'clock your time, and then that way you can go and actually take care of stuff instead of talking to U.S. morning shows. By the way, Luca Pelliccioni, he is the press officer for the San Marino Federation and the San Marino squad that got the win last week to break the losing streak and the unbeaten it's just the streak. Let's call it what it is. What did it mean? Let me ask this. To get the win and have the winless streak stop after 20 years, what did that mean to the country and to those who love the sport of soccer in your country?
You probably cannot see my goosebumps, but that's it. It means everything to San Marino because before starting to work in the Football Association as a press officer, I used to work like a sport journalist in San Marino TV station. So I'm handling San Marino's football since 15 years, more or less. And any media that was outside the country that were asking for information on San Marino or asking about interviews or contents were all about this losing strike. Then we start to have some draws, thanks also to the UEFA Nations Leagues that start this path 6 years ago, to be more precise. And then they ask, when are you stopping this not scoring strike? Then we started scoring because last year we got some headlines in also foreign newspapers and medias for 3 in a row goals scored against Denmark, Finland, and Kazakhstan. Then the question became, when you're going to win, since you're not winning for 140 games. Yeah, we won. We won last Tuesday I think we are going to post so many Throwbacks Thursday contents and in the next week's upcoming. But any of these 140 games played by San Marino against how to say some monster teams like England, Netherlands, were for sure announced defeat even before the starting whistle. But our players always shown their pride and sweat their jersey, even if they were fully aware that they were going through a defeat. I think they see the opportunity and they exploit it. They shown on the pitch last Tuesday that they really want to win this game, and they won. It means everything for San Marino players to any sacrifice they're going to go through any week.
And the young man that scored wasn't even alive when the streak started. I mean, Nico Sensoli is 19. The streak was 20 years old. To have folks who are still wanting to be a part of things, to have the younger players still sit there and say, yes, I want to be a part of the San Marino national team. What does that mean that folks still want to be a part of it, even though things had not been going well up until last week?
The theme of youngsters, it's really a new one in San Marino, because since we have really few players, because to get a San Marino's passport, it's really difficult, and our country is made of 61 kilometers squared and 35,000 people throughout the country. So this basically means that you can count on 40-50 players that normally are split between under 21 and A team. But from a couple of years, the approach was slightly different. If in the past you had to complete your cycle in under 21 and then move on the A team, now we don't have anymore the fear to launch some youngster in the A team. You can see from March onwards, I think 8 players under 23 made their debut with the national team of San Marino. One of them scored in June at the very first caps, is Simone Giocondi. Nico Sensoli had 4 caps with the one with goal scorer, but it's a very debut in a competitive game because he played the three friendlies. A couple of players born in 2005, 2006 were playing last Tuesday. If you need it, you probably will be pushed to do it, but it's not so easy to think, because I mean, this is also the product of a change of mentality that this federation has tried to embrace, fully aware that it may lead also to big defeats, but we are quite used to big defeats, so why not try to approach the situation from another point of view?
Has it sunk in that the last 20 years are now the winless streak is over? Has it really sunk into everyone there, not just on the team and that plays the sport, but to those who live there? Has it really sunk in that this streak is over?
You can never say never in both directions, because we are fully aware that we weren't. I think we weren't the worst team in the world. Even the FIFA ranking was telling this, but we had never the chance to challenge our opponents in South Asia conference, for example. But we are fully aware we're not the worst in the world. After this winning, we're not the Brazil. So for sure, I mean, in this victory drove to a different perception from outside, because we are and we were and we'll always be fully aware of what we are, who we are. But probably from abroad, there is this condition of underdog, the always losing team. This was seen like why they're taking part to this international stage if they're losing all time. Why they should compete in a group if they're going to lose all the game and the other 5 teams are always get 6 points with them. I think that we demonstrated that we deserve to stay in this stage, even if we are going to lose the upcoming 30 matches. From a Samarians point of view, I cannot tell you that the average Samarians player is so proud of the sport achievement. Probably they're not used as well. We've seen also in the recent in Tokyo Olympics 3 years ago, where we got 3 medals, and it's an incredible thing if you just think about the average medal per population. But not so much celebration or parties. Something normal, like the defeat. Also also the good things are taken with a low profile in San Marino. Don't know why, but that's it.
So you've got the matchup coming up, and when you now have what's going on there in Moldova, obviously right now, Group D1, Nations League, right now you're on top. And there's going to be the matchup with Gibraltar to determine who wins the group coming up down the road. When you have matchups like this one coming up with Moldova, what do you think you're willing to learn about yourselves as a team with this friendly coming up with Moldova where you are right now?
I should forward this question to the head coach to have a proper reply. But from my point of view, all the games in which San Marino is involved are the most important of the world. From our point of view, there's no difference between friendly or competitive games, at least in the previous 140 games, according to the Gibraltar-Liechtenstein fixtures a couple of days ago. For sure, the next one would be really, really different, because, as you said, we are on top of the league with 2 points on Gibraltar. And if this game against Moldova friendly would have been just 3 days before the game in Gibraltar, for sure would have been approached in a different way, I'm sure, also to preserve and to avoid any potential injury, something like that. But Sammarinese players have a lot to understand, to pick up from any game, from any training, and so on. And this would be just another opportunity to raise the bar, to increase the level, to better our performance, and to approach a game against another team like Moldova that is competing in the D League of the UEFA Nations League in the other group. So also to see if we are on the same level or how far we are from them.
When is the matchup against Gibraltar?
It's mid-October.
Okay. And is it in San Marino at the Stadio Olimpico, or is it there?
No, it will be played in Gibraltar.
Okay. Well, glad that we were able to catch up. Glad you made it to Moldova safely. Moldova right now leading in Group D2, by the way. And Luca, I cannot thank you enough for coming on an American morning show to talk about everything going on there in San Marino. Like I said, we follow. We're right there with you, brother, and could not be happier with what happened last week. Be safe and have a great fixture. Get home safely, and we will definitely continue to, if it's okay with you, as things continue to go, we'd like to keep reaching out, have you keep coming on the show, talk about things and what's going on there in San Marino. Cannot thank you enough for doing this and hopping on. We got you out right before 5 o'clock local time. Thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you very much, John. Why not? Hopefully next time on site in America.
You got it, brother. Thanks again. We'll catch up soon.
My pleasure.
Oh, wow.
Bye-bye.
All right. Luca Pelliccioni. He's the press officer for the San Marino national team. That's fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic. The beauty of StreamYard. And as I said, we are all San Marino. And I'm hoping that I didn't scare Bart away. Because we were really getting into the discussion about the U.S. men's national team. And Luca called in early. So Luca called in early at 10, a quarter to 10. He wasn't supposed to call in until 10 o'clock, but he got in the hotel room. And at 10:30 our time, 5:30 local. They've got to do their match day -1 press conference stuff with Moldova. So here just to recap before Bart comes back on, and Bart knows he's coming. So literally after they won and beat Liechtenstein, I reached out and I was like, okay, can we have some kind of a presence on the show, all that. So Luca emails me back and he's like, yeah, we'll be in Moldova. I've got this window of like 5 to 5:30 local time on Monday. And I'm like, okay. And like I said, and that was what triggered making sure that Bart could be on and he could be on early. And then, of course, Luca hit all of his marks early and got all the green lights and came in at a quarter till. And so thanks to Bart for putting the rest of the segment on hold. But yeah, so that was Luca Pelliccioni. He's the press officer for the San Marino national team for soccer. And he dialed in from a hotel room in Moldova. Fantastic. Oh, brother. All right. So that was our number one. And that was hilarious. It was fantastic and hilarious all at the same time. We need to figure out a way to get San Marino's national team over here for a friendly. That's what we got to figure out. So that's the latest out of San Marino. And like I said, I just wanted to see if we could find someone that could put a voice to what happened. When you have a winless streak of 20 years and you have a win at home from someone who was 19 years old and wasn't even alive when the streak started, to get that interview is fantastic. But no, I give full props to Luca for that. And that was absolutely wild. But that's the beauty of the morning show that we have occasionally. And like I said, that I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't know if Luca was going to make it in time. I had him scheduled for 10 o'clock when they were getting into the hotel, but he got into the hotel early and got into the hotel a half hour early and punched all of his green lights. And here we go. Okay. So here's segment number 2 with Bart. Hi, Bart.
Good morning again. Good morning, Will. Good morning, Scott. Good morning, Abby.
Oh man. But no, like I said, Luca Pelliccioni is the press officer for the San Marino national team. And like I said, I didn't know if it was going to work, and it worked. And so we had a conversation with Moldova, man.
It is celebration time out in San Marino in the middle of Italy.
Oh, it was fantastic. Okay. So, you were yelling about, the second goal.
I don't know if I was yelling. I was
you're still
sternly communicating.
Okay, then you were sternly communicating about the defensive lapses that were happening with the United States and their loss to Canada.
Yeah, I think the frustrating part, and I forget who said it in the chat, but Tim Ream, look, you have been great for your country. You've been a great club player for a long time, but I think this is where you do have to fault Mikey Vares for being a little too afraid to shake things up. I mean, the mission to me should be we need to start turning the page, right? And you kind of even had leeway to do that with the fact that Jedi was out, McKinney was out, Adams is out, and most of those for obviously Adams actually hurt, but we allowed the I kind of don't really want to fly over to the States right now excuse to be, which it should be. I mean, I think we've talked about this particular window being superfluous at best and unnecessary probably in reality, and not very well placed on the calendar. FIFA is talking about, if not removing that, moving it back into the month as well, because you're going to get players who are a little not quite ready. But yeah, I think that you need to start rewarding and punishing players for performances on the field. And I think this is something that the Berhalter coaching tree values so highly.
Mm-hmm.
Training sessions and doing drills correctly and doing the instruction part correctly, that they don't seem to value the actual on-field performance and production. And that's something that's been very frustrating, as and it's led to Berhalter holding on to players for way too long.
Right.
It's led to, players getting complacent in their roles on the team. And Tim Ream is a perfect example of there's no reason why he can't be in this camp. I mean, he's a domestic-based center back. He's pretty experienced. Why not? But why does he need to be the locked-in starter? Right? And if it's just because he does the drills better, well, yeah, he's 30 dadgum 7 years old. He better be doing the drills well at this point in his life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I think the mentality needs to start shifting. And I do blame Mikey Varas for not seeing the opportunity to start a guy like Trusty or McKenzie, who, if they screw up, then we learn something. And that's just where, again, these friendlies need to be learning exercises. We didn't learn anything from Tim Ream screwing up a bunch, other than he's probably not fit for international play anymore. But then you didn't necessarily bring in someone to, sub him off and say, okay, well, here's your shot. Christopher Lund had a average day. This was a perfect opportunity for Caleb Wiley to get some playing time and say, hey, look, we're struggling right now. Let's see if you can go make something happen. You saw Aiden Morris take advantage of that opportunity. Finally looking good in the red, white, and blue. He's struggled on the international stage. Juxtaposing that to, Johnny Cardoso being a very poor performance. Those were good to see. We still haven't seen Josh Sargent play for the U.S. national team, I think, since 2022, which is continuing to be a concerning trend for him. Gio obviously got hurt this camp because, the law of Gio Reyna is he can't be healthy for more than a week. And, that was a problem. That was just, frustrating, is that it's one thing if you're bad, right? Because you put out a bunch of new players, or because you were trying something new, or because, hey, you know what, guys, the point of this friendly is for all of us to go play together and get some new guys some time on the field. If that was your stated goal, because we know the Berhalter coaching tree loves goals and metrics that have nothing to do with actually winning, then that's fine. But that wasn't what was presented here. And you put out it wasn't like you experimented much with your lineup, right? I mean, everyone who played was like, well, of course you're going to play because for some reason Brendan Aronson is seen as a better soccer player than Haji Wright because he, I don't know, moves his feet quicker, even though he doesn't really do anything with that. Joe Scally is the obvious right back up to Sergino Dest. I don't think it was bad, but, just one of those things where it wasn't like you did anything to go, well, look, I'm the substitute teacher, so who cares? It almost felt like he took the Berhalter, Greg Berhalter left a little folder with the instruction plan, the lesson plan for the day. For some reason, the dude is fired. Who gives a crap?
You were close.
Do something different, and he didn't. He got too scared. And so I do blame Mikey a lot for this, even though he was, hot and said, oh, it's on the players. Well, it's also on you, man. You have to set that standard, because we've heard this from Berhalter as well and from players is, oh, well, it's an intense training session. Well, then why doesn't that transfer to the playing in the game? If you're going hard and intense in training, why is that not translating to game? So it's leading me to believe that there's not really the intensity that they think there is in training. And they're just saying it is.
Then you end up with the ratings, which you pretty much have skewered here when it comes to everything. The oh, by the way goal in the most dangerous league in soccer came from Luca Della Torre. An LDT scored with about 25 to go. And once again, you look at too little, too late. Mikey Varas, after the match, said, I love those guys, but the mentality to fight and run and to sacrifice, I can't do that for them. That's on them. It's a combination between me and them, all of us together, end quote, from our friends at Agence France Presse.
And it wasn't there. I mean, you look at the ratings, and no one did well, except for Patrick Schulte, who I think does need to get a shout out. I think people were unfairly criticizing him for that first goal. Maybe he should have done better, but Schulte was the only player who, in my opinion, played well this game.
Looking at our ratings, of course, from our friends at Soccer America, Schulte pulled a 7, Chris Richards a 3, Tim Ream a 2, Christopher Lund a 4, along with Joe Scally. Midfield, Yunus Musa a 3, Malik Tillman a 3, Johnny a 2, Forwards, Brendan Aronson a 3, Falarin Balogun and Christian Pulisic got 4s. Subs, Aiden Morris a 5, LDT a 6, obviously with the goal. Haji Wright a 3, Cade Cowell a 4, and Pepe an incomplete, obviously with the number of minutes that he did not play in the match.
A very gracious rating for Cade Cowell.
And next up, the U.S. gets New Zealand at TQL on Tuesday, 7 o'clock Eastern kick. With this one, when it comes to this particular matchup against New Zealand, I mean, obviously you've got to do a make good in here somewhere and be out for blood, yeah, at least figuratively. Put up.
I don't know if that's the Greg Berhalter mentality that's being transferred through Mikey Barras.
Okay,
that's where we're at. I mean, responses would be great, but we haven't seen this team respond to adversity, really. Sure, they tied Brazil, a not very good Brazil team, after getting smacked by Colombia, but it's not like they magically flipped a switch and were like, oh, this is how we play soccer again. So, you have to have a better response. New Zealand is a much worse team than Canada, so anything short of a multi-goal win is going to reflect badly on everyone involved. I don't care who the coach is. And that's kind of what bothers me about this Canada game is I don't care who the coach is. The lineup we had and the players we have are better than the Canadian players. David, Laren, and Davies are very good players, right? But we have players who should be able to match up with them. And we have better overall quality. And that did not show. And so that's where the frustrating part is, who's going to start showing their actual good quality. Because right now, not even Christian Pulisic is showing their good quality. And, again, you can tell me that you need to do this and that, but until you actually do it, it's just empty words.
Okay. So we're heading to this match on Tuesday, and we'll see where it lays out. There is a previous Soccer for US POD episode that is out. What are the next plans for a future Soccer for US
the
POD?
goal is to record on Wednesday.
Okay.
Afternoon, I'm flying to Pittsburgh for a certain football game this weekend.
Backyard brawl.
Backyard brawl. So we better get it recorded by Wednesday so I can edit and send it out to you, John. So that is the plan. Hopefully, we're talking about Pochettino more in this episode and not as much about the actual play on the field, because at that point, it won't matter, right? If you hire Pochettino and you announce him before Tuesday or even on Tuesday, the performances don't really matter all that much because you can start talking about a new coach and not why this team can't seem to play better than the sum of its parts after 6 years, 7 years of trying to do that.
All right. So before you go, I am looking at the schedule and I am checking the get-in price as a subtle plug to our college football show that we have over on the OSG Sports side of things, where we look at football on a budget. And by the way, this is not football on a budget. If you are looking to go into this particular game at Acrisure in Pittsburgh, right now, West Virginia, 2.5-point favorite. The total 60.5. 3:30 kick on ESPN2. Get-in price at the former Heinz Field is a low get-in price of $72.
Yeah. Well, this is what happens when a team that actually cares about football, college football, plays in Acrisure. You're going to actually have ticket prices that are at market value.
Oh boy.
I mean, look, that stadium's going to be full, packed to capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Last time we played there, it was the largest crowd for a football game ever in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. It wasn't because of the Pitt fans. I'll just tell you that right
now. So we will be looking forward to the next go round of the Soccer for US POD, hopefully coming up before your departure. Otherwise, you're cutting it in the Pittsburgh airport. And we'll see what happens.
I'm not bringing a laptop with me on this trip. So.
Oh, wow. Okay, so
we are cutting ties. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so 3:30 kick Saturday afternoon. Once again, thanks for dropping by in part 1 and part 2. Considering our guest from Central Europe that came by this morning.
Well, thanks, John, for having me. Everyone, stay safe, stay healthy.
Yes, stay healthy and continue drinking the Earl Grey, my friend. And so there goes Bart. Bart's going to go. I think Bart is going to end up probably drinking a lot of tea. So, all right. So let me go through the comments this morning. We got two major topics before we get out of here this morning, and that probably will take up the balance of the time. Three. Since the twos played this weekend, we'll get into the twos a little bit. With the teams in Major League Soccer that did play this weekend, we have a major point that was made in a rant by a coach. And it was and we have it courtesy of our friends at Massive Report. And Wilfred Nancy went off. And so it is a larger point, once again, that we have emphasized on the show. And we will discuss with what happened in his match. And basically, it was one question. And the press officer for the Columbus Crew basically said to Wilfred Nancy when he came in the door, opening statement, Nancy was like, nah, give me questions. We'll go ahead and take questions. And so literally he takes the lead-in question, goes on this rant for the ages, and it is a rant for the ages. And we're going to play the whole thing. Like I said, I don't normally play something that is as long as Caleb Porter, but I thought it was important in the grand scheme of things to understand where he's coming from. I traditionally don't play something that will be as long as the Wilfred Nancy rant from the weekend, but it is just as important. I probably will do play-by-play underneath it as he's going, or reactions underneath it as he's going. So we have the Wilfred Nancy concern that we have had here on the show in the past, and we'll carry that through, and we will let you hear about that. And then the news on Chelsea. And I'm sure that Michael Head's ears are burning because there's news there where the partners are angry at each other. Bowley is angry at Clear Lake. Clear Lake's angry at Bowley. And we'll see how it all plays itself out. But we'll get you the play-by-play on Bowley Clear Lake. Not happy with each other as the owners of Chelsea. And we'll lay all that out for you. And if there's anything that we've missed, lay it out in the Twitch pitch. Here's the week, by the way. After that, Tuesday, once again, we'll go over everything else that we missed today. Then Wednesday, since Tyler is back from the boat that he was on with his family, and he tried apparently to get a cell signal once. Didn't work. So he kept his cell phone off. God help the man with all the messages he got when he came back. Tyler's at 9:15 Wednesday. See if we can catch up with the busiest man in the Northeast, Dylan Butler at 10. Marion Crowder hopping in to talk USL Super League. Jessica Charman, by the way, calling matches on Peacock this weekend. She had the Spokane-Brooklyn match on Peacock this weekend. We need to catch up with Jess about college, about USL Super League, and about Charlotte. So whenever Jess can breathe, we'll try to have her on the show. Marion Crowder, like I said, 10:30 on Wednesday. Thursday, hour number one's wide open right now. It's the Power Hour with Nino and Nico. And remember, Nino's coming with news. Apparently, he's going to break some news on Thursday. And we'll see if we can have Nino and Nico discuss Raul Ruidiaz and what happened with the two with him, with the announcement that happened, the story that happened on Sounder at Heart that we talked about late last week. And then Friday, getting you ready for all of the action on the weekend. Nashville coming to town. We'll see if we can get Lucas Panzica to bat leadoff and talk about Nashville and see what's going on with him and Nashville in general, and see if we can grab Jason. We can whip around all that stuff on the in-between. So that's the week that we've got here on SDH and being here in the office. All right, so let's get into the comments and everybody who's hopping in, joining us. It looked like Tom Russo was at OBX this past week, and so he got the chance to be on vacation and stay away from all of us. Morning, Abby. Morning, Will. And Abby saw Alex Morgan's goodbye speech, and apparently the four-letter is annoying Will. And Abby liked the taking off of the cleats as a part of I'm done. Ownership infighting. What is this? Atlanta Spirit. But at least Will, Bowley, Clear Lake can be in the same city and they can yell at each other across a table instead of being in three separate cities and trying to figure out who's in charge. Do not get me started about Atlanta Spirit. Do not. Let's see. So Will says, I thought I got booted for criticizing Fanatics quality in a very PG way, and I got a 6-hour ban. Yikes. Abby has not been posting. Morning, Alex. Morning, Will. Yes, how very Picard of you, Bart. Yes, with the Earl Grey tea. Yeah, and so, Will, you mentioned the rant from Caleb Porter about Timothy Ford. Like I said, Timothy Ford ain't got a whole lot of friends when it comes to this side of the aisle, or the team side of the aisle, because everybody remembers Timothy Ford with Atlanta United. Timothy Ford's got issues apparently with New England on more than one occasion. So it will be interesting to see what, in fact, the consequences are. Keep an eye on the weekend and see if Timothy Ford, and maybe the weekend, maybe the midweek after, because of assignments and travel and all this kind of stuff. Maybe if it's not this weekend, check the midweek and check next week and see if there's any internal consequence with Timothy Ford after this outburst, this tirade from Caleb Porter. So we'll see. Morning, Scott. Scott Flood hopping in hour number 1, saying hi to everybody. And Will says, pro is the combo Carolina Panthers with Daniel Jones as a QB. Apparently, the trivia question came out yesterday that Bryce Young improved from half to half. And this was the joke that was circulating, that Bryce Young threw an interception on his first pass in the first half yesterday. He waited till his second pass to do that in the second half. So there was some level of improvement, apparently. Morning, Knicks. Jason, a little late to the party, but glad he's here. Abby wants to know how much he's going to get fined. I don't know if you're going to get a number out of this. Find an undisclosed amount and will serve a suspension of X number of matches. That's what I think. And it will end up being a news dump, probably Thursday late, maybe. So we'll see what happens there. Nick says with the U.S., legit the worst USMNT performance in a long time, especially to Jesse Marsh. And has probably, I don't think he's rethinking his decision. I think that he sees it as a challenge. He's going to bring in his guys. He's going to bring in his staff, and we'll see what happens. So that will be intriguing when it comes to the men's national team. Yes, Tom, you missed all the Boca talk last week. Abby, no freaking passing. The passing sucked. Canada deserved the win. The U.S. had no chutzpah. U.S. players didn't want it. Nick says Canada should have scored at least 4. Schulte had a few massive saves. And Nick's brought up the question about Tim Ream being in camp. And another disappointing crowd for a U.S. soccer match, a fairly small venue. U.S. soccer fails again to promote the game and actually fill the stadium. Now, did you see the friendly, or the friendly that El Tree had, where it was at the Rose Bowl and they had like 12 people there? I'm not kidding. I mean, that was pretty bad. And I think I went too far. I don't want to choose a league. I just stop getting pop-up windows. Getting pop-up windows from freaking people alleging to be Xfinity while I'm trying to search for things. Wow, is that annoying? Let's see. CONCACAF Nations League. Oh, let's go international friendly. So let's do that. All right. So no September 10th. I don't want that. So let's back up. Well, and I have Nancy's rant, so it'll be there. All right. So yes, pop-up windows pop up because that's what they do. Absolutely. All right. So I think it was this international friendly with New Zealand, if I could find the date. Yes. Okay. So it was a 9:00 start Eastern time at the Rose Bowl. on September 7th. So today, Saturday night. Saturday night, New Zealand was in country, meaning the United States, to take on Eltree at the Rose Bowl. Announced crowd 25,271. And I feel sorry for Eltree in New Zealand because Joseph Dickerson was the man in the middle. 3-0 win for Eltree, allegedly in front of 25,271. I want to say that was tickets sold instead of butts in seats. But there were pictures out of that one that not a lot of folks. Morning four card. If the M&T had other options for a right back or a right wing that can play good crosses. Exactly. Abby, thoroughly bummed if Caleb doesn't get any playing time. Potch has to be a motivator of some sort as a coach, or somebody has to be a motivator of some sort as a coach or an interim coach. Absolutely. If you're Mikey Varish, you've got to motivate. If you're Pochettino, you got to motivate. Morning, Harry. So, yes, Alex, we will be playing Wilfred Nancy's rant in its entirety. We have it. It will be played in its entirety. It is worth it because, as I said, it addresses issues we have talked about here on the network a lot. And we'll get into it. So let's go ahead and start the discussion of Major League Soccer. We'll start with Next Pro. Twos had a big win. Big win on the weekend. Going to New York City, to Icon Stadium on Randall's Island, first match ever, renovated facility. They get the win in PKs. Jaden Hibbert comes up big again. And NYC and Atlanta United draw after 90 minutes. Stoppage time equalizer, Gajardo on a corner to Efren Morales. Morales heads it in past Luis Barraza. 2-2 after 90. They go to PKs. Atlanta United 2 gets the extra point. So if you missed it, then you can go catch the whole thing on the Twos Review on the network. It exists. Twos Review on the network. You can go back. You've got highlights, and we lay out where things are in the Eastern Conference right now in MLS Next Pro. Atlanta United, obviously, they've got some work to do. Huntsville City's coming to town on Sunday afternoon, and it will be a chance for Atlanta United 2 to continue to climb up the ladder in MLS Next Pro and chase after the 8th spot in the standings. Conference standings, just so you know, 4 matches to go for Atlanta United 2 in the regular season. FC Cincinnati right now, FC Cincinnati 2, 45 points. Union 2 at 43. Columbus Crew 2 at 42. NYCFC 2 got the 1 point. They're at 41. Crown Legacy has one more win than Orlando City B. They're both at 40. Miami, with their win over Huntsville City Football Club, they're now at 39. Doesn't change the 8th seed point total, just changes who it is. Chicago Fire 2 right now, 38 points, 4 matches to go. Atlanta United 2, 7 points back with 4 matches to go. Chattanooga FC behind by 1 goal in goal difference. They've also played 1 more match. Chattanooga FC has 3 matches to go regular season. And if you have the chance to go back and listen to Chattanooga FC, you can catch our buddy Gabe Schrei, who calls the matches up there at Findlay. Carolina Core, 500 on the road this season at 5-5 after their rough start. They've really come around under Roy Lassiter. The 9 seed right now, but they have 2 matches in hand on Chattanooga, 1 on Chicago Fire 2. So they're at 34. Red Bulls, 33 points. They are under 500 at home. I mean, at home, they're, what are they? At home, they're 5-6-1. No, they're away. 5-6-1 away from home. Wow. 3-5-4 away from Montclair. So Red Bulls 2 right now at 11th at 33 points. Atlanta's at 31 through 24 matches. The only thing keeping Toronto FC 2 in the playoff picture is that they have a match in hand with folks underneath them. Right now, 9 points out of a playoff spot, match in hand, and they've got 5 to go. Huntsville City and New England have been eliminated from the postseason. Huntsville City at 23 points. New England Revolution 2 at 22. 0-11-1 away from home. So that's the Eastern Conference. In Major League Soccer on the weekend, it was a handful of teams that were like, and remember, in Major League Soccer, you have the option to play through international windows. Some teams needed to catch up on matches, and they did that. And some teams got in trouble during those matches. So going back to last weekend and the handful of matches that were there, we'll start with the late and we'll work our way forward. Vancouver, Dallas, goalless draw. Houston, LAFC, goalless draw. LAFC did not have Kiki Oliveira, did not have Denny Bouanga, did not have Matheus Bogusz. So shutout for Steve Clark and the Dynamo. DC beat Chicago at SeatGeek. Red Bull Arena 1-1 draw. Red Bulls and Sporting Kansas City. We talked about the 2-2 draw with the Revs and St. Louis. The other match was the first one on the board. Seattle and Columbus. So, context. Seattle beat the brakes off of Columbus, 4-0. But it was even until a moment late in the first half that involves part of the plot line that we have here that's attached to the rant for Wilfried Nancy. Because Patrick Schulte was away on national team duty, they called up Abraham Romero to be their keeper. Evan Bush was injured. So Abraham Romero was the Crew's keeper, and because of all of the call-ups that they've already made this season, they could not call up another individual. So Abraham Romero was the keeper. That's it. Abraham Romero, bang. And that's it. The bench for Columbus on Saturday night did not have a second keeper. You had 3 players that were called up from Crew 2. Owen Prestes, Taha Habrun, and Gibran Rayo. Then you also had Derek Jones, Yaya Boa, DeJuan Jones, and C-Ram. So you had a 7-player bench. You did not have a backup keeper because of all of the call-ups that you have already made this year. So Abraham Romero goes outside the 18 for a challenge, plows into the Seattle player at 45 plus 3, gets a red card. So once again, no backup keeper for Wilfried Nancy because of all of the previous call-ups that he's made this year, and that included the match that was going on against Seattle. 2 keeper injured. Schulte away on international team duty. So that meant Abraham Romero got the call-up, no backup. Romero gets a red card. Sean Zawadzki, defender, had to wear a keeper jersey for basically the remainder of the first half and all the second half. Like 50 minutes or so of action where Sean Zawadzki has to wear a keeper jersey. Gets beaten on the set piece off of the red card as Albert Rusnak was on his way to a hat trick. 1-0 at the break. Jordan Moore scores in the 60th. Rusnak scores basically a brace within 3 minutes. Gets a hat trick. Seattle goes on to win it 4-0. So that was a game that Crew had to make up because they were kind of busy. Right now in the Eastern Conference, Messi and friends have an 8-point lead with 27 matches played. Cincinnati's 8 back. Columbus still has a match in hand on Cincinnati. They are 2 points behind them right now in third at 49 points. So it's 1, then it's 2 and 3, then it's Red Bulls, and then the fight starts. 5 through the remainder. NYC at 39, Charlotte at 38, Orlando at 37. 4, 5, 6, and 7 are a group technically. Then, because of all the action, Toronto's at 33, DC's at 32. That's your playoff bar. Atlanta's at 31, Philadelphia's at 30. 4 teams separated by 3 points. 8 through 11. New England, Montreal, both at 27 points. New England ahead, a goal difference of a minus 21. Montreal's a minus 23. Chicago and Nashville. Chicago at 28 matches has 26 points, and they're ahead on goal difference by 2. So 12, 13, 14, 15, 4 teams separated by 1 point. After the match, Columbus loses 4-0. Keeper gets a red. Sean Zawatsky has to play the remainder of the match as your keeper because you don't have a backup keeper because of all of the call-ups that you've made this season. All those emergency call-ups that we always see, like so-and-so called up from the 2s. All of the emergency call-ups that were made, none of them could be an emergency keeper. And so your keeper gets a red that you called up, that you had as your third, but you had no backup. So after the match, and once again, this is courtesy of our friends in Columbus. This was what Wilfred Nancy said, and like I said, it's a long thing, but it's worth it. This is what Wilfred Nancy said after the match when he really wasn't even asked about it, but he talked about it.
Again, we lost the game tonight, obviously. And my plan was to talk about a few stuff already, win or lose. I'm going to try to be coherent because this is not for me. Yes, we lost today. Obviously, I'm not happy with that. But I'm not happy also about the lack of understanding of clear situations. So I'm going to explain myself. After tonight's game, we are at 39 matches played. We were mandated to have 3 goalkeepers on the team sheet for CCC. This is what we did. We had to use a call-up for a friendly game against Aston Villa. So why I'm not happy before the game? All the week it's happened, I was not happy about that. Because there is a rule, as you know. We can use only 4 times, 4 call-ups, 1 player from the reserve team who has a contract. As you know the issue that we had with the goalkeepers, with Evan Bush. So we tried to anticipate that. We tried for adding a 4th goalkeeper, knowing that we could have a situation like this today. And when we asked before the game to have another call-up for our goalkeeper for the reserve team, they said no. Knowing that this game, Seattle, we were supposed to play this game in March, around March. So for me, yes, we lost. But again, the MLS, the league, there is a clear evolution about the way we do things, the numbers of games that we have. There is addition for the Leagues Cup, there is addition for the World Cup, and so on and so on and so on. We are pleased with that. All year when you ask me the question about how many games you're going to be tired, we have a lot of games and so on, I never complained. Because I said, we won. So this is the reward of the fact that we won. So we have games, and we are pleased with that. We are proud of that. But I cannot understand when there is a lack of coherence with a simple rules that why we don't use a call-up when we do the friendly game, the preseason game. We played Aston Villa, so Stas and Cole, we called them, they played 0 minutes. And we use all the 8 call-ups total for them. So what is the point? I'm not asking to ban the call-ups. I'm asking to add more call-ups. because we have more games. This is impossible to think like that. For me, this is a lack of, I'm losing a bit my words in English, but this is comment on dit malhonnêteté? This is dishonest. So we just ask to add a call-up because of the situation that I told you. We said no. They said no. But we use a call-up for the friendly game, and we are a club to develop players. So what is the message? Knowing that I can talk because we have a young team, and we are able to win with a young team, and we are able to do good things with the academy. I'm really proud of all the players I went with the national team. I'm not complaining. I don't complain about that. I have no problem with that. I do this job for that. But why are we going to sign a player, a young player, a professional contract for one game, knowing that this is not the moment to sign this player? Because what is going to happen? What we're going to sign this player? He's going to come in the locker room. He's going to be part of the group, but he's not ready for that. So what is the message for the young players in the academy? Oh, yes, I signed a player because I didn't have a goalkeeper or I didn't have a player. Hey, to become a professional player, sorry my language, but this is fucking difficult. Taha, we signed him. Cole, we signed him. But there is different pathway with that. Cole, we had to loan him. Because there is different pathway to become a consistent player. I'm not saying that we will not sign players. I like young players. That's why I'm here. I like also old players. But we should have consistency. It's a wrong message if we don't adjust that. With the number of games that we have, it's a wrong message. The league wants to add more young players. No problem. I started my career at 18 years old. But I stopped at 22 years old. Maybe I started too fast. Maybe I earned a lot of money when I was 18 years old, but at 22 years old, I had no more money. So what is the signal? So we're going to sign a player to give him a good salary at 18 years old or 17 years old? Instead of winning $30,000, we're going to give him a salary of $80,000. He's going to be happy, but at the end of the day, he will not play. There is different pathway for few players. So, le CBA, they have to understand that. And I'm not upset because we lost the game. I was upset already before the game, all week, because this is not coherent. Thank you.
Courtesy of our friends at Massive Report, that was Wilfried Nancy after losing the match at home to Seattle on the weekend. It is a topic that we've brought up here on the morning show a lot. And Nancy makes a lot of good points in this. You have to make a call up for a friendly against Aston Villa, and it counts against your numbers. If that is in fact the case, then you ought to get a make good from the league for having that call up that you had to have in a friendly that has no bearing on anything going on in Major League Soccer. We've talked about it when it comes to other competitions. We've talked about it when it comes to how the league in and of itself has addressed Open Cup in the past and probably should address Open Cup in the future. Relax your roster rules. Relax your roster rules in an Open Cup situation. Relax your roster rules for those friendlies because, once again, as Wilfred Nancy said, he had to have a call up for a friendly against Aston Villa. And I think that what this is, once again, it emphasizes the need for Major League Soccer. Let me see if I have something that would fit here. This notebook doesn't have all of the pages in it anymore. I've used a lot of pages. Traditionally, when we have a notebook, when we get the notebook at the beginning, this is almost like Dr. Joe Macknick in the rule book. What does the notebook do? Notebook's flexible. The rules of the game, according to Dr. Joe, flexible. So once again, we have an instance where Crew, because of all of their specific rules that you have to have, the rules of engagement, the rules of the road, when it comes to roster call-ups and the machinations of paying a player. I mean, he mentioned Cole Moroka, who we've seen with Crew 2, with Atlanta United 2. To help further Cole's career, you loaned him out. In some situations, when you have to call a player up, I mean, you're paying them that daily salary, or you're signing them to a deal, to a first-team contract, the veteran men, that 80,000 number that he mentioned. But what good does it do? I mean, it does great for your bank account, no doubt. But what good does it do under the current construct of the rules if you're called up, you're signed to a first-team deal because you need a guy, because you've got other guys that are, off international duty, which is a good thing. But what good does it do the player if you sign him to a deal, and if it is the first team contract or what have you, you bring the player up under whatever construct you want to use, and he doesn't play. Like I said, we've seen it with Atlanta United. Atlanta United's had to bring players up just to kind of fill out a bench. They don't play. But once again, with Wilfred Nancy and what he said after the match, he said he's not complaining about the match. It was what it was. He was mad coming in because of all of the machinations that he had to do. And he only had the one keeper because of all of the previous machinations he had, because he's so successful as a club inside Major League Soccer. He only had the one keeper. Abraham Romero gets a red card. Sean Zawadzki, here's your multicolored jersey. You get to wear it for the rest of the day. But I think this is the most recent example of how the roster rules and the roster rules of engagement need to be more flexible. I don't understand if this is in fact the case, where if you have to have call-ups for a friendly, how that counts against you in your 8 call-ups during a year, 4 of which players you can use. How that counts against you, I don't understand that. I really don't. That should be something that should be taken off to the side. It is a friendly. It is outside the construct of any kind of a competition that matters involving a Major League Soccer club. But apparently, it doesn't. So you've got to be mindful of who you call up for these kinds of things, knowing, in fact, that it is a friendly, knowing that you don't want to damage any of your starters, but at the same time, folks are paying good money to see your starters play minutes. So I think that, once again, Wilfred Nancy is reinforcing the fact that we got to take a look at the rules of engagement for Major League Soccer. Benefiting the clubs, making sure that they can be as flexible as possible when it comes to competitions, because if you're successful, once again, you're going to need to figure out how to navigate everything so you can be as 100% as possible. And that could have a knock-on effect in how you navigate your Open Cup rosters. Do it like they do, the the NBA, the 10-day deal, but don't sit there and put a number on it. You can only do it X number of times a season. Well, what if you're successful, or what if you have more things going on than X number of games allow? You get pinned into a situation like Wilfred Nancy did this past weekend with Columbus. Like I said, we looked at the bottom of that roster, the game day roster. Taha Habrun, Gibran Rayo, and who was the third? Who was the third roster? Who was the third one that I can't remember? No, Taha Habrun, Gibran Rayo, and the third one. Crap, I can't remember who the third one was. This is what happens when you end up with Crew 2 on the brain and you can't remember who it was. Who was it? Oh, Owen Presthus. I mean, Seattle signed Georgie Manungu to a deal, and Nico Moreno was under the impression that was probably going to end up being a permanent. But you look at Sota Kitahara, Dylan Teves, Jacob Castro. Those individuals are probably heading back to Tacoma. But Manungu signed a deal, signed that first-team contract. But they meaning Seattle, had a longer bench in this matchup than Columbus did. No backup keeper, 7 players deep, 3 called up from Crew 2. 9 for Seattle on the day, and it looks like 3 were called up from Crew 2, and you signed Manungu to a first-team deal. So once again, this is another situation, another variant of the same topic that we've had on a couple different occasions. But my biggest raising of the hand is, why should a friendly count against you? Why should a friendly count against you? Alex, yes, Le CBA. Really liked how it wasn't a generalized gripe about MLS, but a very specific takedown, because players get paid for friendlies and the players' union doesn't differentiate the competition its members are laboring in. The union doesn't want the players to get used to too much without the guarantees of a contract. And no, it's not. And Alex said, Alex says it's not an easy thing to fix on the fly. As much as MLS loves to lay a rate directly in front of them, Alex doesn't think this is on them directly. No, I mean, it was something that was negotiated in a CBA. And so I think that you have to have that baseline of, you have to have those guideposts. But I think that also when it comes to competition, I think that the league can sit there and make allowances when it comes to call-ups and player involvement, second team players and academy players and all that kind of stuff. If in that, and if in that match, the 4-0, not the Villa friendly. Let the friendly be a friendly, fine. But since it is outside of the construct of a match inside of Major League Soccer, then it should not count against everything else that's attached. It's another example of a couple of line items that are in the CBA that I think need to be looked at. Because of your own success and you're having to work on the fly, you get to late in the year and you have a situation like we had this weekend, amplified by the fact that the keeper that you had, your only keeper, ends up with a red card. So I think that both sides have to sit down at a table and make allowances for, okay, well, say a friendly doesn't attach itself to the regular season or any competitions that Major League Soccer is attached to, Leagues Cup, Open Cup, regular season. So those outside friendlies should not count in the instances of trying to call someone up and be okay and just have them, and have it be okay, basically. So I didn't know if I was going to go that long with it, but I thought it was important. When you have a coach like Wilfred Nancy, who is as successful as he is, lay out an issue that he has with roster construction and being able to construct a roster on a game day basis. Like I said, much with Caleb Porter in hour number 1. All right, Abby, good to see you. Thank you for catching up with me yesterday offline. And I thought that hearing both of those press conference opportunities in their entirety, I thought it was important. So we all can hear something more than a soundbite when it comes to those coaches and their issues that they have, and understandably so. Okay. News of the day, legitimately, probably has more to do with our friends at the Athletic than anything else. Abstermobile's almost completed with decor, people. Very, very cool. But biggest topic that I wanted to get into this morning has to do, obviously, with Chelsea and the ownership crisis therein, as it's being referred to. It appears that not everything is right in Mudville. And we go to our friends at The Athletic. I love how it's a New York Times byline. I always thought that was pretty funny. But it appears that obviously things ain't right now with Chelsea. As they sit there and they give me an article about Ernest Slutt and what he's going through at Liverpool, which is the one that I didn't click on. Why Clearlake and Bowley's marriage is at a breaking point. Once again, it is Toomey, Simon Johnson, and a lot more dudes. So a little bit more than 2 years after their takeover, Clearlake Capital's marriage to Todd Bowley is in tatters. Those are the words that they use. Rumblings of discontent audible behind the scenes. Specific accusations of breakdowns in relations between Bowley and Clearlake co-founder Bedat Iqbali were always denied until now. Now in the wake of a Bloomberg report last week that revealed Clearlake and Bowley are each exploring the ownership options, all parties for the first time acknowledged the scale of the rift. People familiar with Bowley's thinking say he considers his relationship with Clearlake and Iqbali to be irreconcilable, and the others claim the two men barely speak to one another. Amid the many points of contention, broad agreement, 3 factors in particular have contributed to the fracturing of the owners. A fundamental cultural difference in how the Premier League clubs should operate. That's not good. Clearlake and Bowley, each believing the other, has sought to unduly influence sporting decisions. 2, the decision to mutually part ways with Mauricio Pochettino at the end of last season, which exposed the first public fault lines. 3, lack of tangible progress in the stadium project over the last 2 years, with the club not yet resolved on a revamp or a rebuild of Stamford Bridge or moving to a nearby site at Earl's Court. Meeting took place last month when the pair decided to explore their options. Bowley and Associates have received approaches from investors in recent weeks with a view to buying out Clearlake, while Clearlake has aspirations to buy out Bowley. Committing more than £1.2 billion in transfer fees, generating more than £500 million in sales. Bowley has been the name most often cited. He has not led recruitment at Stamford Bridge, however, since January of 23, when he relinquished his interim sporting director title. Once again, that coincided with Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart as co-sporting directors. Iqbali remained very active on the sporting side, flying to Turkey with Winstanley to pitch Shakhtar Donetsk on a deal to sign Mikhailo Mudryk, initially for 70, with a further 30 in potential due in performance-related add-ons. So a possible €100 million max on Mudryk, contributing to why they signed him to an 8-year deal, so they could defray the cost all the way through. Winstanley and Stewart continue to work closely with Iqbali. They led the negotiations on getting Enzo Fernandez from Benfica. Egbali's more engaged in the day-to-day, but Stamford Bridge and at Cobham, the training complex. As the representative of the private equity firm that owns 61.5% of the club's shares, he can be considered the most powerful figure. Bowley's approach, as evidenced by his work with the Dodgers, is to hire specialists and allow them to get on with their jobs, while Clearlake, particularly Egbali, has taken a role considered by Bowley to be micromanaging. A source close to Bowley's side described Egbali as being obsessed with player trading. One person familiar with Clearlake's thinking disputes this, insisting Egbali's level of engagement in Chelsea's recruitment serves only to support Winstanley and Stewart, not least regarding the numbers involving the transfers and contracts and structuring of deals, where his financial acumen complements their football expertise. In any case, all major decisions taken at Chelsea require sign-off from Bowley, Egbali, and Clearlake co-founder Jose E. Feliciano. Bowley has never exercised his veto power over transfers. The lack of open resistance, according to figures close to him, is due to a desire to pick his battles. Similarly, no Clearlake checks on any of the transfer business conducted during Bowley's ill-fated tenure as interim sporting director in summer of 22. Tried to address the unsuccessful signings, selling Koulibaly and Aubameyang, freezing out Sterling before loaning him to Arsenal. Yet many have questioned the wisdom of subsidizing a large part of Sterling's wages as he lines up for a team likely to be one of Chelsea's competitors in the Champions League. Pochettino in the second half of May, Bowley made public pronouncements at Sportico and at the Qatar Economic Forum that appeared to advocate for keeping him on as head coach. Bowley then raised his eyebrows at Stamford Bridge by inviting Pochettino to a private dinner on the Friday evening before Chelsea's season-ending home win against Bournemouth, a courtesy that the coach promptly disclosed to journalists in his final press conference of the campaign. Following Tuesday, it was announced that they had decided to part ways after 6 hours of discussions over 2 days at Cobham with Winstanley, Stewart, and Egbali, while Bowley dialed in from the U.S. People familiar with Bowley's thinking say he wanted Chelsea to retain Pochettino, didn't formally veto when the final decision was mutually reached. These sources add he considers, meaning Bowley considers Egbali to be trigger happy and the driver of the call to move on in the Pochettino case. Also, a belief on the Clearlake side being overruled by Chelsea's sporting leadership on Pochettino was the tipping point for Bowley to begin exploring his options within ownership structure. Diverging interests. Question is why the parties didn't see the tension coming when they came together to buy out Abramovich back in 22. Never operated a business together going in. Tensions during Pochettino's tenure and the way he played out has exposed the fault lines among Chelsea's owners once again, which have now fractured. So it is a long read, no surprise, but it goes into the stadium issues and it goes into the relationship or lack thereof now with Bowley and Clearlake. So we'll see what happens there. Matching rights, veto powers regarding potential offers from outside investors. Clearlake can therefore credibly argue all roads must go through its majority shareholder, but Bowley and the others also have a measure of protection against any changes to the ownership structure that do not have their approval. Also important to note that not all Chelsea shares are created equal. Clearlake shares are Class A senior. Bowley and his co-investors are Class B junior, meaning the latter are exposed to first loss if the club loses value. Bowley, Walter, and Weiss would be guaranteed the same rate of return on selling their stakes as Egbali, Feliciano, and Clearlake. Clearlake and Bowley have set out their respective stalls, but posturing with an exaggerated level of conviction, high-level business. Neither party is going on the record to clearly state their intentions, really, and reassure the club's supporters. Nobody knows how or when this will end. It ends, quote, "What is clear, however, is that the public litigation of these grievances only deepens the sense of disorienting instability Chelsea have failed to escape since the for sale sign went up outside Stamford Bridge more than 2 years ago." So that is your requested required reading. Kind of bounced around and talked about it a little bit. But yes, according to Crafton, the source of tension, interesting, more than just Pochettino's exit, which Bowley opposed but didn't formally veto. Ultimately, a culture clash between investor types, individual money equity versus private equity. And then Crafton has the look of that in the New York Times. So that's your Monday. That's your Monday here at SDH. Let me check and see if there's anything to watch, what to watch, how to watch it, where to watch it, those kinds of things. So like I said, tomorrow it'll be back to normal unless something else breaks that we don't know about. And then we'll talk about it. So what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. Soccer on TV today. Got a lot of college stuff, obviously. Nations League at 10 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. Guatemala, Costa Rica. Group play in Nations League. France and Belgium at 2:45 on FS2. Valor and Ottawa, 8 o'clock in the Canadian Premier League on FS2. On the Plus, La Liga 2, Castillon and Cadiz at 3. Fox Soccer Plus has group play, Cyprus, Kosovo, Norway, and Australia. Noon and 2:45. CONCACAF Nations League. It is a big day for CONCACAF Nations League. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 matches in CONCACAF Nations League today. Trying to see if there are any interesting ones. Aruba, Puerto Rico at 8. Guatemala, Costa Rica at 10. Apparently, the Dominican Republic Dominica match is going on right now. Let's see. Antigua and Barbuda take on Bermuda at 4. Barbados takes on the U.S. Virgin Islands. Cuba, Nicaragua at 4. St. Kitts and Nevis on the BVI at 4:30. Honduras and Jamaica is your nightcap at 10 o'clock. So that's where to watch it, how to watch it, because it's on Paramount Plus. All of it. It's on Paramount Plus. So thanks to Luca Pelliccioni. That was crazy. Luca Pelliccioni, the press officer for the San Marino men's national team for soccer. He was calling in from Moldova. So they get a friendly tomorrow against Moldova as they get ready for their matchup against Gibraltar to see if they can get out of Group D1 and maybe get into Group C when it comes to UEFA Nations League. Great for Bart to come by, and grateful that Bart let everything go on hold, came back, and we talked about yelling at people. So that's all the info that you needed when it came to the U.S. men's national team, all the reffing down here, and Alex Morgan, all that kind of stuff. That was USMNT at the Soccer for US POD at Bartimus Prime 19. Played the Caleb Porter rant going into Bart's segment, where he really might be getting a large envelope or short envelope with a lot of large letters in it. Big fine. We'll see what happens. Keep an eye on Timothy Ford and his activity. See if there's any repercussion there when it comes across the board. And then I was catching up with all of you guys. And once again, another rant, Wilfred Nancy. But there was a reason for it. And I think there was a good reason to remind everybody about it. So that is the rundown of everything here today. We'll be back at it again in a little less than 22, by the way. Thanks to our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps. Over 30 years of experience in finding folks their first gig in nursing or finding folks their next gig in nursing. Go to our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps, and you can either start your journey or continue your journey in a different direction that you may not have necessarily thought by going to Alliance Nurse Corps. You hit that QR code. It takes you to Alliance Nurse Corps. Then they ask how you found out about us. You sit there and go, SDH, yo. Serious. It's SDH. The SDH Network Soccer down here. So thanks once again to our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps. Thanks to our friends at Kaiser Permanente. And thanks to all of you guys for hanging out as well every single day from 9:05 until whenever. We're going through the day in soccer. And sometimes we'll go off the rails and we'll go to other places. More often than not, that's just kind of how we are. But once again, thanks to everybody who hopped in today, listened to the two big rants, listened to Bart rant, listened to the story about what's going on in the Principality of San Marino. Morning, David. Good to see you as well. Once again, back in a little less than 22. We'll do it all over again, and we'll talk about everything going on in the world of soccer. I got to find the close because then I can close. There's my outro slide, and I'll whistle us out. Play it safe, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.